Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Regenerative Business Podcast. It's Sam here. And I want to do something that I haven't done in about a year, a deconstruction episode. So about a year ago, I released the workshop Deconstructing my first $94,000 cash month. And it was just an insane hit. Over 1,000 people signed up for it in a matter of days. I got such great feedback from it. So I wanted to do it again, except I'm going to try it out in just an audio format because it is honestly so much easier to talk everything out than it is to make a full-on slideshow, which I always like to do. Even though I love having the visual element to go along with it, it's just a lot more work. So we're going to try this out. Please let me know if you loved it, even though this is just in an audio format, because I can do a lot more of these if it's just audio versus like waiting an entire year to do it again. And it is pretty cool just looking back on time because it was about a year ago. Because this week in a couple days, I am leaving for HypnoThoughts, which is a annual hypnotherapy conference in Vegas that happens every year in July. So I have this like time tracker because it was around this time last year that I released this workshop. So this one, if you read the title, then you know it is going to be deconstructing my $103,000 cash month, which just happens with this last launch of the Regenerative Business Ecosystem. So I have a full page of notes here of everything that I want to talk through. We're going to be bouncing around, but first let's just do a quick definition of what I mean by $103,000 cash month is when you see people's revenue reports online, I think it's useful to know whether it's cash or sales. So if someone says they had a $250,000 launch, that's often referring to sales. So it could include 12-month payment plans and the actual money that hit their account at that time was $100,000 or $50,000, depending on how many people paid in full, how many people did the payment plan, discounts, whatever. Versus a cash month, meaning that is how much money hit your bank account in that period of time. So with $103,000 cash month, I'm talking $103,000 processed by our payment processor and received in a 30-day period. And since we're defining, this wasn't just from a launch. We did have a wildly successful launch of the Regenerative Business Ecosystem. We have 193 members in this first open period, which is just so beautiful, so exciting. But that 103,000 also came from private clients. It came from evergreen funnels I have. It comes from payment plans for people buying other offers and paying a payment plan, or just people finding me and joining other mini offers or other courses. So I just wanted to be clear with that. And I mean, it's honestly something I love about my business and more established businesses with a larger product suite. There are so many channels for people to come in to your business ecosystem. And you're not just thinking about the one launch because of recurring payments, because of ads, because of all of the other things that are happening and that are building upon one another. Okay, so with that, I want to move into the actual membership launch because 82,000 of that 103,000 came from the launch of the membership. And again, this is cash. So if people came into the monthly membership and they're going to stay for however many months, I don't know yet. I don't know how many months people are going to stay because it's the first month right now. I am definitely doing my darndest to over deliver with the desire that people stay for many months, if not years. But 82,000 of the 103,000 came from the launch of the Regenerative Business Ecosystem. And I was doing the numbers a little earlier today, and 30% of the people coming in joined for annual. So 60 people joined annual, and then 70% came in monthly. So big majority coming in monthly, but let's actually scoop back a little bit around this whole decision. So I did mention on the podcast last week that I had a lot of resistance to actually launching a membership, even though I've been thinking about it for over a year. It came into my field of awareness as a desire over a year ago, and it took me an entire year to work through it. The main reason was because I have been on the back end of a lot of memberships, and I've been a purchaser of a lot of memberships. But in being on the team that either marketed or helped deliver a membership, I saw and I witnessed how much a business can actually change through the process of having a membership. One business that I worked with for years, they had a $27 a month membership, and it took a team of like 10 contractors to support, between client delivery, between affiliate management, between the various speakers that are guest teachers in the membership, and then marketing it. It just was a beast to actually be a part of. And I mean, a part of that was the CEO and the blueprint of the CEO and what their vision was and what they wanted to do with it. But then for another business, they had a $99 a month membership. And I worked with them for years before they launched a membership, and it was a really, really simple business before them. They would do an online course launch every 1 to 2 months, and because the courses were usually, or most of the courses were already created, it was very simple to deliver, beyond just monitoring a Facebook group and doing some Q&A calls. Then after the membership, the founder of this business hired 4 people to support the membership between the community and the live calls and guest teaching. And their monthly expenses just ballooned, which can cause a lot of stress because suddenly you have to bring in more money into the business just to cover costs. And then you have to manage all the people or hire managers to manage the people. So witnessing those 2 memberships and those launches and how it changed the businesses, I just had this idea in my head that if I do a membership, it's going to be hard to sell. And if I do a membership, then my business is going to become a lot more complicated and I'm not going to love it anymore. And so I was pushing up against that resistance for a long time. But at the same time, I was definitely calling in and witnessing a lot of things to break down the resistance. So I joined a few memberships that I've loved being in, and witnessing how those people have structured their memberships in different ways that made it simpler, both as a participant, as a member, but also obviously for them and their team. And of course, it just came back to, is this something I want to do? And is this something that I'm willing to make work? Am I willing to put in the work to make this work? And it just always came back to yes. And so for the last few months, while I was in this like in-between period of I want to do a membership, but I'm resisting it, that's always a point of turmoil for me. Indecision is just this huge point of turmoil for me. If you've heard me talk about my Saturn return almost a decade ago, that was like such a big takeaway, is like when I'm in this indecision, I am in turmoil. So even just to be on the other side of it and to be in it, we can fast forward now that we're in the membership has been launched. So many people have joined. Community is live calls have happened. I know for myself that I honestly don't know whether I'll like something or not until I'm actually in it and my body can experience it. And just to have my body experience it and be like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted, is just honestly such a relief. And I can look back and be like, of course I was being led in the right direction. And I've done some very specific structural things to make the whole experience be delightful for me and really intentional in the design so people aren't overwhelmed and people get tons of support. But anyways, let's actually talk about the launch. So 2 things that I did preemptively before we opened at all was, the first thing is I did hire an astrologer to come up with a birthday. So an actual electional date for the birthday of the membership. And she gave me 2 different dates. One earlier date that she recommended for a soft launch, and a second later date that she recommended for a public launch. And I didn't ask her to do this. It just happened. So I had June 6th as my soft launch date, and then June 26th as my public launch date. And then the second thing I did preemptively is I was really, really clear that I wanted to do a rebrand in alignment with the membership, or not necessarily a rebrand, but I wanted the membership to have very intentional branding that was different than what I had been using for the last year. I don't really talk about branding that much in the online space unless I'm doing a promotion around somatic branding masterclass, but honestly, visuals and branding are such a huge part of my devotion and my connection to and excitement for a program. I think I don't talk about it that much because I've seen so many examples of people who I think have really ugly or unintentional branding, and it doesn't matter. They do extremely well, and it doesn't really impact their level of visibility. But for me, the visuals really, really do matter. I think it's a way to transmit a feeling, and the statistics support that. But I often push copywriting as the thing down everyone's throats because I 1000% believe that copy is what matters when it comes to online business, and the visuals, the branding can be a bit of a nice to have, but it is a nice to have that does make everything easier. So before the launch, I went into meditation like we do in Somatic Branding Masterclass. I created Pinterest boards. I really felt into the energy, felt into the texture of it. And it's so funny how perfectly aligned with the astrology it ended up being, in the sense that Cancer had just moved into Jupiter, and I have a Cancer moon. So Cancer is a really big part of my chart. And if we think about Cancer, it's this creating a home space, creating safe spaces, especially for emotional wellness. And I was like, man, that is so perfect for a membership space. And I think what I intuitively do in all of the programs I've created, if I look at people's feedback around the community spaces and the people who come in. So the branding ended up being like super water oriented and summer vibes. And I worked a lot with my designer, who is also my mother, who is also a Cancer moon, to create a much lighter, summery, watery feeling brand for the membership, and using a lot of natural metaphors for the actual illustrations we created, like ulu, which is breadfruit, which is one of my favorite fruits, the name of my dog. But also it's this symbol of resilience and abundance in Hawaiian culture. And then we use a lot of shell imagery, specifically cowrie shells, which was one of the first forms of currency in more ancient times, cowrie shells. So bringing forward this feeling of nature as abundance and natural abundance. But ultimately, the whole point was me feeling really proud and excited about the visuals I was putting forward and allowing the visuals to actually seep into liminal space. Okay, I did not have the branding ready for the soft launch. I did for the public launch, but let's just look at the actual soft launch. And this was a 1-week period from June 6th until I think June 13th, whatever 7 days later is from June 6th. It was honestly, I was experimenting with a ton of different things for this soft launch, and it worked out so well. I'm 1000% going to do this again, where the soft launch was only to people who have purchased from me before. So they could have bought my book, they could have bought a mini offer, they could have bought private coaching, anything from me. They received details about the soft launch. And I did some really minimal pre-launching around it, where in Instagram stories, I did a few stories over like a week before saying that something was coming only for previous buyers and who were also active on my email list. So I was like, okay, if you've bought from me, but you've unsubscribed from my email list, get back on the email list. Or if you know that you want to be able to see this offer, then make sure you buy at least a mini offer, even if it's like a $7 version of my ebook. And just reminder of the date. And so on June 6th, on the exact time that the astrologer told me to use, I emailed all previous buyers that it was now available, and if they wanted to learn more, they could respond to the email with a keyword. So I did not send out a direct link to the offer or details on the offer. They had to literally respond to my email and reply info. And then me and my assistant throughout the 7 days just respond. If someone sent in the word info, then we responded with, we just had a template of so excited you're interested. And then I linked to a Google Doc. So no sales page, just a Google Doc. I did record a video where I explained what the offer was, but that was on the Google Doc. And then a checkout link to join. And so they had 7 days. I sent out 5 emails over those 7 days. But again, so simple. I had a checkout page. It was super discounted. I only discounted the annual during the soft launch, but it was like a super duper discount for the annual during the soft launch. And then I was mentioning it on Instagram stories where I was saying, if you have purchased from me and you're on my email list, go check your inbox for and look for this email. Limited time offer. And then I was also sharing screenshots of people being like, I'm in, this is the best thing ever. I always try and immediately share testimonials or messages, including testimonials, because of my ADHD, where if someone sends something in and I don't immediately do something with it, then it's gone forever. And one of my best organizational tools is Instagram stories, where if I can share a testimonial, even if it's anonymized and I am crossing things out, then I can just share it to an Instagram story highlight. And now I have all of my testimonials all in one place, because instead of in an inbox where I'll never be able to find something again, or in DMs where I'll never be able to find it again. That was it for the soft launch. It was so simple. The only thing I had to have created is a checkout page, a Google Doc, and I did record a video. I do think the video helped a lot. People told me they liked hearing my excitement around the offer, but I just recorded it on my phone and edited it in Descript. And the big success around it is honestly, and the reason I think I was able to keep it so simple was honestly, the offer was killer. It is killer. Like, you get all of my courses, all of my trainings, and I got instant access to everything. As a part of the soft launch, I didn't have everything complete. Like, they got access to so many things. They got access to all the programs, all the things. They didn't get access to the private community or the private onboarding or the private podcast until a couple weeks later. But they got instant access to so many things that it honestly didn't matter. And just a huge discount on it. So it was sent out to around 2,500 people, and there were over 200 responses. So it had about a 10% response rate in terms of, okay, it was sent out to 2,000 people, 200 people responded with that info keyword. So 200 people were sent the Google Doc. And then from there, 47 people joined during that 7-day soft launch, which is like a 2% conversion rate, which is great. It's actually double what's standard. I'm sure it would have been higher, or like I could speculate that it would have been higher if I sent them directly to a sales page instead of a Google Doc, but I just honestly felt really good about having a little bit of interaction before sharing. That felt really good to my body. There was one failure during the soft launch, which was a lot of people ended up, when they responded saying info, they went into my spam folder. So we had 50 people and we didn't know for days. There was like a 5 days that we didn't realize that a lot of people were ending up in my spam folder, that we weren't seeing their keyword being sent in. So we didn't even see it until the day before the final day. So that was didn't expect that to happen. And people were DMing me on Instagram being like, hey, I sent this in and I haven't gotten anything. I was like, no, we've been responding to everything. It wasn't until 8 people DM'd me on Instagram being like, hey, I responded with the keyword. Where's the info? I was like, oh, what is happening? So that was a really simple soft launch. And because all the discount was on the annual, it ended up being over $40,000 in cash in a 7-day period from 5 emails, which is awesome. And it really had me thinking about compounding interest. For anyone who is interested in personal finance at all, and you've used any of those investment calculators before where you say, okay, if I have $0 now, but I put in, let's say I max out my Roth IRA every single year, which is $6,000. So I'm putting in $500 a month into my Roth IRA. It's just automated. What happens over 30 years? And you're like, wow, it turns into millions of dollars. And if you dig into those compounding interest graphs, you see exponential growth. And this is where I wish we were. I could share my screen and share a graph of exponential growth, but you'll see it's okay. It takes 10 years to get to $1 million, but then suddenly compounding interest starts taking over. And then if it takes 10 years to get to $1 million, then after that, investing the same amount, it takes 5 years to get to 2 million. And then it only takes 2 years to get to 3 million. And then 1 year to get to 4 million. Not because you're adding in any more money, but because of the compounding interest of your interest growing. I feel like that's the case with business too, in the sense that if I was newer in business and I hadn't been putting out a podcast for years and emails for years and Instagram for years and been showing up and serving students and over delivering for years, I wouldn't have been able to send 5 emails to 2,000 people and make $40,000 from a low ticket offer. It's like the compounding interest of business, where you have to put in a lot more in the early days of business to make a certain amount of money. But eventually, things start compounding, where your business is working for you, where your reputation is working for you, where the consistent weekly actions that you do for years build up, and then everything feels easy. Okay, anyways, on to the actual public launch. So the public launch happened from June 26th until July 7th, 2025. And I did 3 different price changes throughout the launch. So I had an action taker's price for the very first day. So the first 12 hours was the action taker's price of this public launch. Then after that, for 4 days, I did an early bird price, so 1 step up from there. And then for the 7 days after early bird was over, I did a founder's price. A part of this is I know that my audience, my people, they respond to price increases. Building them in to my launch, I knew would make it easier for me. And a part of it was for my nervous system. I wanted early wins for myself and get excited and to celebrate people joining. By having a really quick open period, a 12-hour period with the first price, I knew it would give me early wins, and that would feel really good. And it would actually reward action takers, which I do love to do. So the launch was 12 days, definitely on the longer side for a launch for me. Like I'll usually do 7 to 10 days, but this was 12. I sent out 17 emails when I went back and counted, 17 emails. A part of that was like baseline was sending an email a day, but then there were extra emails in there, like reminders that the price was increasing or reminders of a live call or, oh, I forgot to send an FAQ email. I got to send an FAQ email. I did 2 podcasts during that period. That's one place I felt like I was lacking. I definitely could have prepped more and thought about podcasts during that, but hey. And then I did 12 Instagram posts during that period. So 1 per day for 12 days. I had 2 different launch events during that time period. The first was a paid launch event. That was my Radical Riches live workshop, which had a couple hundred people join. It started as a $25 workshop, then was $50 after early bird. I say it kind of was, just in the sense that, honestly, the topic wasn't that sexy. Radical riches, the idea of radical riches is sexy, but it's honestly a bit philosophical. And I know if I had done something that was way more tangible, how-to, practical, I could have gotten a lot more signups. But it just felt really aligned with this foundational launch, this founder's launch, to do a foundational topic. And so something that I was recording for inside of the Regenerative Business Ecosystem membership was the Radical Riches pathway. So it was directly aligned with some content, some videos, trainings I was making within the membership. And it was just foundational knowledge that I wanted members to have. And so that's another aspect of the membership, is you get access to all of my live workshops. So I'm going to be doing a live workshop every 1 to 2 months for the rest of 2025. And so it felt like the perfect first workshop for people coming in to the membership. Let's talk about this foundational concept. And then the other launch event is I did a public live Q&A, which was so perfect. I really thrive in Q&A settings. I'm a 5-1 in human design. So if you know anything about that, I always see it and really resonate with the idea that we're the problem solvers. So I love Q&A situations where I can just respond to people asking questions, even though I'm not a generator. But I hadn't ever tried to publicize a Q&A, and I was like, oh, it seems too general. Why would people just come to a Q&A? They're going to think I'm trying to sell them during this. But I knew, like, I had a win set up in the sense that this got to be a bonus Q&A for all of the members who are already in. At that point, we had over 100 people in the membership because, by the way, 42 people joined during that action taker period, that first 12 hours. 42 people joined. That was like 20% of all sales for the entire launch came during that 12-hour action takers time period. So I already had over 100 people in the membership. So great, bonus Q&A. I already knew people were going to show up. But then I just sent out an email to my entire email list, inviting them to come. And it was ungated. I didn't have anyone opt in. I just gave out a public Zoom link. I was like, come here at this time. And I simultaneously did it as an Instagram live. So I had my phone in front of me, broadcasting as an Instagram live, telling people to come onto the Zoom if they wanted to ask questions. And I had people submit questions ahead of time. I was also answering questions live on the Zoom call, but I liked having that baseline questions coming in. I know I'm going to start with some questions, and I think it's nice if people can't join live, but they want to have their questions answered. There's an opportunity for that, and I will absolutely do this again. I know that the ungated part of this made it so that more people could participate. There wasn't any sort of barrier to join. Sure, I didn't get emails, but I'm mostly trying to get people who are already on my email list onto the call. And I know that people joined just because of attending that Q&A. And we went for 2.5 hours, and it was so fun. I love live Q&As. It's like one of my favorite things. I'm sure we'll end up adding more live Q&As to the membership just as more people join. So that worked out really well. And then the last thing that I had baked into the membership were retargeting ads. Oh, one comment before that is I did have 3 sales pages technically for the launch. The first being the Google Doc that I sent out. I guess that's technically a sales page because that's where all the info was. Then I had a version 1 that I had ready right when we started. And then I created a version 2 as we got deeper into the launch. I definitely am someone who is slow to get into a launch. Like if you are in Sacred Attraction Formula, then you know the concept of the planner versus the pantser. And I'm more of a pantser than I am a planner. I only plan when other people are involved, but like for clients, but for myself and my own business, I'm such a pantser. So I'm like, okay, let's get our baseline sales page. And then like, I'll write a new sales page halfway through. And honestly, I don't think it's a final sales page. I'll probably redo the sales page again for the next time I open enrollment because it feels incomplete. There's something not fully right with it, and I just need to spend a really juicy day with it, with like music on and like incense, and do meditations around it and create a whole vibe around it. So it was like another element of the launch. But the other element is I did want to mention retargeting ads. I really love running retargeting ads anytime I launch. And a retargeting ad is something where instead of showing something new to strangers, I'm showing something to people who already know me. So retargeting people. And I ran retargeting ads to my email list. So anyone who is on my email list would see these Facebook and Instagram ads. Mainly just making sure that they were aware that the membership was open. It's a brand new offer. And by the end of it, I think I spent like $1,000, and it says my return on ad spend was 25x. So that means I spend $1,000 to make $25,000. And this is exactly why I love retargeting ads. It's like you don't actually have to spend that much money to have a huge return on ad spend because you're showing something to people who already know you and love you. So that's the whole shebang. Oh, I guess I should mention magical practices. I didn't write that down, but I meant to. The things that I did during this was, first of all, is I did the Twin Serpents meditation from the Magdalene manuscript. So this is a book by Tom Kenyon where he supposedly channels Mary Magdalene. And I've done this meditation before, but I love it during periods where creativity is incredibly important. I just feel so creatively activated by this meditation. So I did that for the entire month. I also created my first servitor. Have not done this before, but I loved it. I just followed the process by one of my favorite magical occult authors, Damon Brand. They have a book called Magical Servitors, and you are essentially just creating a spirit from your own life force with a very specific intention. So the intention of this servitor was to help me attract amazing humans and right fit humans into this membership. And it really felt supportive to go through the process of creating this being. And it's like a fast process. It doesn't take that long. And I mean, that was pretty much it. I honestly didn't do much in the magical realms of things. I for sure could have done more, but I'm super pleased with the results. Clearly I didn't have to do more, but I usually lean more into the magical energetic side, but that's all I did. I did some tapping, I did some journaling, but the thing that I was most consistent with was the twin serpents meditation and then working with the servitor. And so anyways, thanks for being here on Deconstructing my last $103,000 cash month. I was reflecting on today versus a year ago when I did this, deconstructing a $94,000 cash month, of just how much things have changed in business in such a short period of time. Every year I feel this way. Every year it feels like this big transformation. And where I was playing in the same ballpark a year ago, right? 94,000 versus 103,000. Not that big of a difference. But when I look back a year ago, that first 94,000 was due to a collaboration. It was directly because of doing a live workshop with someone with a much larger audience with me. I did Cold Pitch Magic with Simone Soul, and the revenue from that was a big portion of that $94,000 cash month. And this time, a year later, and many months in between, being in the same ballpark of these six-figure cash months, and it having to do with no one else. There was no collaborations required. And just such a appreciation, a deep appreciation for my business ecosystem and it growing, and these externalized energies. If you've listened to any of the podcast episodes on externalized energies, just seeing it really in action and seeing year after year, month after month, business becoming easier for me as the founder because of the resilience of the actual business ecosystem growing. And so thanks for being here. Thanks for being here with me, of course. And please let me know if you appreciate this episode. You can DM me on Instagram at The Dirty Alchemy. I'm the one responding to the DMs. And let me know if you love it, because I can definitely create more episodes like this if seeing the behind the scenes of the exact breakdown and everything is useful. Or go ahead and screenshot this episode and share it on Instagram. That is so helpful for the growth of this podcast, and I would so appreciate it. Of course, if you miss the Regenerative Business Ecosystem membership launch, get on the wait list for the next time we open the doors. You can do that at learn.thedirtyalchemy.com/RBE. Link for that is in the show notes. Or if you just go to my website, it'll be really obvious. But I will talk to you soon on the other side of this Hypno Thoughts Las Vegas adventure. I'm sure I will have some stories to tell.